Thank you so much for joining us on the Photo Flunky Show, episode 128. Today we're going to be talking about photography pricing strategies. Hi, my name is William Beam.
Hi, I'm Lee Beam.
And today we just want to let you know that we are here to help photographers become better visual storytellers so they can take better photos to share, sell, and remember. And today we're particularly going to be talking about how you're going to be selling those photos. If you're not a professional photographer, don't worry. You may still be interested in this episode because if you've got a photo that's worth some attention, you might have an opportunity to sell it. Before we get started, I'm going to let you know that show notes are going to be available at williambeam.com/episode 128. We're going to have a couple of links to share with you out there. Imagine, how do photographers create value? And sometimes if you have customers, you may need to fire them. We're also going to go over a little bit about how to price your photography, whether you're doing this as a service or if you're doing a photo license. Let's start off with kind of the value that photography provides to people. At the very basic core of it, I think we preserve memories.
Yes.
You've got tons and tons of photos. Which ones, are the most meaningful to you? Because you do them for all sorts of purposes, but what really means the most of it?
My family photos, family and friends.
Are you thinking about moments someplace?
Yeah, it really is. It captures a moment that you remember, and you can write a story about it, but there's just something about seeing it. You remember, the people you're around by what they look like right now. You kind of forget when you look back as time goes by, you look back and realize that, they're all kind of different, but that's how things were at the time. It's I don't know. It's a weird thing, but it's comforting at the same time.
And if you think about it, photographers, there are a lot of them in business that are not only doing wedding photography, they're doing senior portraits, and they're available for events, and not just necessarily commercial events, but for family events as well.
Yes.
And they're really there. You're hiring these people to preserve your memories. You want to participate in the day. You need someone that you can trust to capture those memories. And those of you that are listening that are in that service business, that's something that you really need to stress to your potential customers is why you exist and why there's value. When you look back later on at some photographs from a wedding, and if they're horrible, you really don't have value. So that's why sometimes going cheap, getting your cousin to take some wedding photos for you, which I'm bringing that up because I was the cousin that my cousin wanted me to take wedding photos. And I just remember looking at her. I was still a kid in high school. And I thought, you want me to photograph your wedding? I said, okay. I didn't know anything about wedding photography. And I just remember her flicking through the photos later, said, these are horrible. And I thought, yeah, they really were.
And moments like that, when they are gone, they are gone. That is it.
And if your cousin's a high school kid and you think you're going to save money to take wedding photos, yeah, you are going to save money. She didn't pay me a nickel. Yep. I don't even remember if I got a slice of wedding cake for doing that. But
that's cheap.
But the quality of the photos that she got from someone who I was at the time that really didn't know what I was doing was commensurate with what she paid.
Yeah, free quality.
The other thing that you really provide as a photographer is you're helping to communicate stories and concepts. Now, you see this in advertising all the time. You really want to show a product in its best light. Sometimes the stories, it could be all the photos that are unfolding for the event. You're communicating a stage in someone's life if you're doing senior portraits.
Yes.
Or you're doing just even regular portraiture with family members. When they're hiring you to do this, there's a point in life and you're telling that story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lee, there was a time that you and Tove went to Walt Disney World and you bought into one of the photography bundles that they had.
I did, yeah.
And that was not the ones in the parks. Because they'll do those all over the place. But you and Tove, I think, went to one of the resorts.
We did it a few times. Yeah, we did. It was a portrait session, so that was it was separate. And look, we were not getting, this was not top end. Like you go and get your portrait photographer and you go out to their studio. This was done at the resorts with Disney's own photographers.
What was it that motivated you to get those sessions?
I went to, we had all the snapshots. I would take pictures in the parks and at the resorts. We had the PhotoPass package, which is Disney's little, in-park photographer service that you can
they
pay
stand
for.
in front of the castle and other places.
And it's all the typical, and when I say tourist shots, they really are tourist shots. They are great because you want to remember those moments. But because we kept going back over and over and we were there for a long time, we had a lot of these photos, and these were similar photos to the kind of family photos I was taking. It was in the same scene and setting. And I just wanted something that wasn't kind of Disney-ish, that was just, me and Tove, something that, that was at the time, that was my family. It was the two of us. I wanted something different. And this was something I could afford. And I wasn't expecting them to get retouched or anything. You can do that for an extra fee. I really just wanted the photos, but I didn't want kind of crappy photos.
So did you get what you wanted?
I did. I really felt like it was excellent value. I mean, they've increased the prices. I think they've decreased the sessions. I don't think that the service now, the package they're offering is the same as what we were getting, but they also have options if you want to add on more and go higher end. People seem to be very happy with it. Whether they feel they get value out of it, that depends on a number of factors, and it comes down to what did you expect out of it for the money. Mm-hmm.
So when you booked those sessions, was that a matter of preserving your memories, or did you have a concept or something that you wanted to share?
I really just wanted to preserve our memories, but I wanted to do it in I don't want to say a neutral setting, but the only memories we really had were vacation photos. And I wanted something that was just us, where the location wasn't screaming out so loudly. Like Disney World, everything is loud. I wanted something that was just kind of, the background was nice, but this was just, we were the subjects.
Yeah. And it was about you and Tove.
Yeah, I didn't want distracting backgrounds.
Okay. The other way photographers can provide value is honestly creating art for people to enjoy. That's where most of my sales have come in, is taking photos that weren't necessarily to preserve memories or to communicate stories and concepts. They really were things that I thought looked attractive or interesting. And then other people have come along and said, that's nice. I'd like to buy that to hang on my wall, or I'd like to use that. I guess that is kind of communicating a little bit of concept, because I had some that I sold for, let's say, for conferences like in Washington, D.C. They wanted some of my travel photos for that.
Yeah.
And I've had some also just for photography in the area, or some that I have no idea why they wanted them.
Yeah.
But it was still a matter of they found value in the photos that I had already created. So you don't necessarily have to do photography as a service to do portrait sessions to make money. You can go out and shoot what you want and then promote it in such a way that people will come along and say, yeah, I like that. I'd like to license that from you, or I'd like to buy a print of that.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't always want to put family stuff everywhere, or if groups of friends. It's not always appropriate. Sometimes you want something that's kind of interesting and colorful. You just want an accent on a wall, but you want something that looks good.
That was one of the requests that I got from. There was a corporate art buyer who had bought some things that were from the area where she was at, but she really wanted something that was more abstract. And that was one where I was almost going to book a flight to New York, because she says, if you can give me some abstract photos from New York, I'll buy those. That's the kind of thing that a lot of photographers probably don't even think about.
Yeah.
If you start talking to these corporate buyers when they reach out to you for one thing or another, ask them what they really want. They'll tell you, because they're struggling to find it. And then you might be able to just deliver exactly what they want. So maybe then you are working as a service, but you're still licensing the photos to them, and you've got kind of a customer in the bag.
Well, that's the thing. And that's also, corporate buyers are not looking for portraits.
Generally, no.
Generally, they really aren't. They're dealing with big buildings, office buildings, convention centers, hotels, all kinds of things. And they're not looking for personal photos.
They're looking for something that fits within the decor that they already have. And that may be a matter of color, maybe a matter of line and shape, or it may be photos of the area where that building is.
Yeah, the theme. Mm-hmm.
And most photographers aren't thinking about shooting in such a way. Maybe you take some pictures of the buildings, in a certain town, but as far as thinking of lines and colors in something abstract, and with the idea that it could sell, you probably need to find those buyers first before you go off and shoot that.
Yeah.
But it's just an idea that buyers want all sorts of things. If you've walked into some of the commercial office buildings around in any town, you'll look at some of the artwork and think, where did they get that idea? It's because they're looking for something completely different than a portrait or a landscape or travel photo.
Yeah, they're not looking for tourist shots or hobby shots.
So speaking of customers, one of the things you need to understand is when a customer is valuable to you, or perhaps when they're not.
Yes.
And I've had a little bit of both. I've found 3 types of buyers, and we're just going to classify them this way. The first one is a tightwad, and this is someone who hates the idea of spending money, and they're probably the one who's going to regret having spent money the most.
Yeah, buyer's remorse is rife with people like this.
So basically, they're saying, I'm not going to spend any money unless you pry it out of my grubby hands, and they're also going to be the ones that are going to try and bottom dollar you on everything.
These people are going to be hard work. I'm not saying every single one of them, but this is the pool of customers or they're not really customers because there's often no monetary transaction that ever takes place. But these people will have you back and forth. They are very, very time consuming. I just know this from experience. It doesn't matter what field you work in. The people who don't want to spend money, when they do part with it, they're going to come back. They've almost already made up their mind, whether they're conscious or not, that they're going to find a problem with whatever product or service you've delivered because they want to still knock some price off after they've paid for it.
Well, what happens is they value the money more than whatever they're buying.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who are going to try and talk you down on your price. Then after you've made the sale, they're going to be the ones that try to come back and either return what they've ordered or see if they can't get a discount. It's like, this picture just isn't right. It's something along those lines.
Now, this is different to the person who, when you put something out that is free, you're giving something out to people. That is different to this kind of tightwad that we're talking about. If you have provided something deliberately so that people can enjoy it, it shouldn't be a big problem.
There's, I just saw something on Facebook the other day from Tim Wallace, and he had a customer who was renewing a license for some photos that Tim had taken. And the guy came back to him and said, since this is a second year renewal, shouldn't the price be lower? And I thought, what kind of logic is that? If it was that much value the first year, then it's that much value the second year. At least that's the way I see it.
There's this thing called inflation.
Yeah, it might actually cost you more. So, but that's an example of the kind of customer we're talking about. They're looking for anything they can to avoid spending money. They're not really looking at your work as having value. You can do business with these people, but it is time consuming. And I honestly think that you need to make sure that you have a good contract, particularly if you're providing services, that specifies all the details that they could possibly want to come back and hit you with. Because that which you don't specify is room for them to negotiate and try and withhold money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it costs, just be aware that also often costs you more money to chase non-payment or issues like this than you ever get to recover.
And that's really an issue if you have something with either recurring payments or maybe the overall cost is a lot of money and you say, well, look, I can give you monthly payments to do that. Well, the thing is, if you deliver something at the beginning and then the monthly payments go on, that's a perfect opportunity for this kind of customer to say, well, I'm just not going to pay this anymore. They've got what they wanted.
Yeah.
So please be very wary of your tightwad customers. On the opposite end is a spendthrift. They're going to spend all the money they possibly can. And these are the people also that you need to watch out for in one regard, if they're overextending themselves and they're ordering something that they can't afford to pay you.
Yeah. And then it becomes a problem later on down the line.
So once again, that's where your contract comes in line. If you're doing monthly payments, you need to have some way to make sure that you can collect. I'm of the mind that I get all my money paid before I deliver any artwork.
Yes.
And there's plenty of precedent for that. So for example, if I go to the grocery store, they don't let me go home and have a meal and then pay them a little bit later because I haven't had the other meals.
Yeah.
Before I leave that grocery store, I am paying everything that I've bought.
It's also really important with things like this to have a really detailed, save everything, every communication, have a system set up, however you want to do it that makes sense to you, where you can find things. So if you have some comeback on something, you're able to find out, get your receipts, get your proof of sending it out, or however you did it, whether it's a physical product or a digital download. Make sure that you've got everything pertaining to that sale kept in one place. You've got to be really, really on the ball with your filing.
Fortunately, these two are kind of in the minority. I would say the majority of people are what I would call, the average buyer.
Yeah.
And if they see value in what you're providing, they've got a use for it, they will make a purchase. They're not going to buy just to buy.
No.
But if they have a need or a desire and it seems reasonable to them, then they will go ahead and spend the money. Now, the question of reasonable or what value it is going to be up to you to negotiate. This is what you're providing. This is the service, the cost, the time that you're putting into it, and why you can deliver the quality results. And the truth is, they don't care what it costs you. They don't care how much time you spend at home editing the photos. All they care about is what they get delivered.
Well, yeah. And I mean, let's face it, the average buyer shouldn't have to think about that.
They're not thinking about that because they don't understand it. And I've seen photographers give them that as an excuse. I've got to put time in for this. A reasonable person will understand that. And they'll say, that, okay, that's why this is part of the charge.
Yeah.
But really what they're looking for is the value that they expect and the quality that they expect.
Which means they need to know exactly what they're buying and what they're getting, and you need to deliver accordingly.
And if you can, overdo it, over-deliver. Give them something better than what they expected, because that's how you're going to get recommendations from that customer to potentially your next one.
Well, the best deal in the world is useless without good service to back it.
Yeah. So you need to provide good service. You need to provide high quality. You need to provide value and do it with a smile. And that's how you're going to build your reputation and start getting the kind of customers that you want. One of the things that we see quite often are people who are trying to get photography basically for free. And I don't mean just, little groups here and there. I'm talking about some big major brands.
Yeah.
They're telling people, hey, we want to build our Instagram account. If you, shoot for us and we like your photos, we'll credit you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. I don't have time to give away to try and get a credit on Instagram from a big brand. I couldn't care less. And there are other ways that big brands really want to take advantage. For example, a few months ago, when some basketball finals were going on, I had a major sports magazine contact me because they wanted to use a photo that I had. And they had an art mock-up that they want to do. Basically, I had a picture of Han Solo frozen in carbonite. Nothing to do at all with basketball. They wanted to put a basketball player's image on top of that to say he froze, during the game. So major brand, major sports, publisher, they asked me what would it cost to license this. I said, okay, it's going to be a short-term deal. I told them $250, and they walked away from it. Basically, they wanted to pay much, much, much less. And I thought
they were hoping you'd say, just use it.
Just use the photo, maybe $50, something like that. I won't do that because that means nothing to me. I don't care if my photograph is in a sports magazine. I don't really get into sports, so it means
doesn't
nothing
have any
to me.
benefits. Yeah,
It has absolutely no value to me whatsoever. I don't shoot for exposure. If I give something away, it's because I find value in the organization that may be using it, which I did for a dog publication one time. And they weren't a for-profit, they were a nonprofit organization. I said, fine, you can go ahead and use my photo. That's my choice. If I choose to give something away, it's not for exposure. It's because I believe in it, or I simply like the people who ask. If you're looking for work, you also need to have a bottom dollar that it's not worth my time to do anything under this price.
Yeah.
And for me, for an item like that, my bottom dollar was $250.
Yes.
That's not an expensive amount of money for a photograph. No,
it really isn't. For a big organization as well, it's not like they didn't have a budget.
It's probably somebody on staff there who had an idea and didn't have budget for it. Like you said, as soon as he found out he needed a budget, they kind of said, oh, well, no, I guess we won't do that.
Yeah.
Or they look for someone else who would maybe have a photo similar to that to give it to them. But that's the way I look at it. It's like, if you want my work and you're going to use it for a commercial purpose, we're going to negotiate how to come up with a license. So that kind of brings us up to our next step, is how to come up with a price for a photo. And this is really variable. I've found a couple of good articles online, and I will link to those in the show notes. But what you need to do is, first off, come up, what is your minimum fee? In other words, your time, your effort, your expenses, anything that goes into creating that photo, that's going to be, if nothing else, not your break-even fee, but your minimum fee with those expenses plus a reasonable profit for you. And don't budge on that. And I know that's a hard thing if you're a professional photographer and all you do is photography and you're not getting clients. But if you're going to chase down to the bottom, I've seen photographers who are simply breaking even, and then they're driving Uber at night to make money to pay for their mortgage and food.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
That's not a career. You're just a guy with a camera if that's what you're doing. And if you want to get the better paying clients, charge higher rates.
Yeah.
People value things more when they pay more for them.
They do. And also, people determine the value they expect based on price. So, for example, if I see something that I know that I'm expecting to go for about $100, I'm just throwing a number out there, and I see it for $25, I'm not going to take a look at it because I'm going to assume that it's
lower
terrible.
Crap.
Yeah. And I don't really want to get involved in that. Or is it a scam? I tend to be a little leery of things that look too good to be true.
Keep that in mind. Raise your prices. Don't lower them. If you got people coming to you saying, well, I can't afford that, then fine. They're not your market. They're not your target audience. You want people who are willing to pay. Now, you got to give them quality and service in order to earn those rates, but you're not going to make your living chasing the bottom feeders. They will just simply, those are the tightwads. Those are the ones that are going to take everything they can for free if you allow them. Some people, if they don't have a budget, I don't care what their circumstances are, you can feel sorry for them. And if you want to do something, you can, but that's not a business.
No, it's not.
What I do when I've got someone who found one of my photos that's coming to me, I want to know a few things. I want to know, what is the use? Is it going to go on the web? Is it something that's going to be print? How long are they going to use it? Is it going to last, for a day, a week, a month, a year, something along those lines? And then I'm also going to wonder, what is their overall budget for the campaign that they're working on? And I'm going to charge a percentage based upon that budget. And if you're wondering, how do you find that out? Just ask.
Yeah.
It is a common question. It's like, what's your overall spend for this campaign? How long is it going to be? Where are you going to use it? I had a photograph that I found someone who liked. She had two needs for it. One was for her website for a convention, and the other was to print on convention banners. I came up with two different prices. For the website, I knew how long she needed it. I knew what size image and where it was going to go. I said $250. To me, that was what a website image was worth. But yet, when it came for printing the banners and licensing for that, and some of the some of the mail flyers that they were sending out, that was worth several $1,000s to me.
Yeah.
And she didn't have any complaints about that at all. Matter of fact, I kind of sat there and said, man, I wonder if I should have raised my rates.
Yeah, but you did it according to the scale, so it was fair.
Like I said, I've got an article that measures this out very nicely. It'll have the scale inside, but basically what you're doing is you're charging a percentage of their overall budget, and it's by use. So for example, like the website was one use, the print items were another use. And what is the size of their audience? How much is it worth to you to have your photograph shown to everybody there? The smaller the budget, the larger your percentage. If somebody's coming out and they have a $3,000 budget, well, then you might want to charge 15%. If someone has a $350,000 budget, you might want to charge 1%. Yeah. It depends on what they want to do. You might find some really strange things. I had one gentleman who wanted to use one of my photographs on the ceiling of their conference room.
Yes.
And
that was interesting.
That was an interesting one. It's like, well, how do you price it? Because like, how many years are you going to have that conference room with me? And I came out to something and we agreed upon it. And I said, okay, this is going to be, I said 10-year license. I figure it's going to be up there at least 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I charged him a rate per year. We multiplied it by 10. He agreed to it. And, that was worth several $1,000s to me as well. And I thought it was kind of a fascinating idea, but you never know where someone wants to use your items. And if you're expected to print, that's going to add on to what you charge them. So there's a license for the photo. And then if you're delivering a final result, then maybe you want to incorporate that into your result as well, too.
Yes.
So those are part of your expenses. And I hope that helps you. We just kind of really wanted to let you know that there are times when you need to express that your photography has a value. And if your customers aren't accepting that value, then they probably shouldn't be your customers.
I agree. Not every customer is your customer.
You ever had to fire your customers?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I have.
And what was it about them that just made you say, you know what, this is not worth the effort anymore?
Actually, for me, I've got a fairly simple approach. I'll treat non-paying, low-paying, or whatever customers all, as best I possibly can. But there comes a point where the staffing time in dealing with freeloaders kind of exceeds, or even people who have bought something, when you're spending more money dealing with them than the value of the product or service that they paid for, it's time to cut loose.
And there you go. That's our tips on how to provide the value for your photography, how to set your prices, and just make sure that you're getting an increasing amount of money for your service or art rather than chasing the bottom dollar. Thank you so much for listening to the Photo Flunky Show. Please, we would love it if you would subscribe to the show at iTunes. Just go to williambean.com/iTunes. You can sign up there. You'll have the show delivered to you for free every week when it comes out on Wednesday. And if you have another service you want to subscribe to, that's fine. Just go to photoflunky.com and you'll find the links there. Show notes for this episode are available at williambean.com/episode 128. If you're a portrait artist who likes using Lightroom, I've got a free gift for you. It is called Lightroom Classic Portrait Brushes. Just go to williambean.com/free brushes, and that will help you enhance eyes, teeth, skin tone, and a little bit more. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much. We'll see you again next week.